Good evening, friends. Welcome to the episode 8 of the Career Shifts podcast. I'm your host, Gopal, and today I'm thrilled to have you all here at a very special session. Before we get started, now this has become a ritual, isn't it? Let me start with a short story. Almost 8 years ago, I was busy on a client call when the phone rang. A very senior leader reached out and asked if I would be willing to join on a panel conversation as a speaker. The year was 2018. I had no idea about public speaking, and the very thought scared me. But others had confidence in me, and I did a good job at the event. This led to one more, several more, and today I would have done over 100 forums public speaking. Speaking is a beautiful art of expression. The choice of words, articulation, and delivery make a huge impact and inspire millions of people. Why am I sharing all this? Because my guest today is not only a fantastic speaker herself, but also founder and CEO of SpeakIn, Asia's largest digital campus for leaders and their teams. I've known Deepshikha for over 5 years now, and I have always admired her for what she has been able to develop in the last years and how she has taken it to global level. We will hear a lot more from Deepshikha today and her journey as well. And it's indeed a privilege to welcome Deepshikha Kumar to the podcast. Deepshikha, thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
Thank you so much, Gopal. An absolute honor. I mean, I know आप बहुत अच्छा बोलते हैं. I can gauge that, and you're very humble, and that's the I think the hallmark of a good speaker, and the genuinity that you bring. So thank you so much. I mean, it means a lot coming from you.
Absolute pleasure. Before we begin, do you have any opening comments, thoughts about this podcast? What brings us all today? Thoughts on career shifts as such?
I think, I mean, we want to keep it like you said that, and I've heard a lot about your podcast from many people. I mean, you're a legend yourself. You helped several organizations, several institutions, educational, government, and more, uh, to bring organizational changes and leadership coaching, and grooming is your hallmark. So I think in that spirit, these are very critical conversations, and I think there is never a dearth of an open forum. Everybody loves an open forum where they can come and talk. Nobody's experience is any less or more. But happy to be here, happy to be talking. Looking forward to a more to a very interactive format.
Absolutely. That's the whole idea, and the purpose with which I started this to have a conversation which is free flowing, absolutely, heartfelt conversations, as Vikas's show's name is. Vikas Dua is a good friend, but literally bringing in perspectives from straight from the heart. So that's the whole idea to do this conversation. So, Deepshikha, our audience today are people who have been going through a lot of varied emotions when it comes to careers, especially. You started off your career way back in 2003. Could you walk us through your journey and share how SpeakIn was born?
My career started even before 2003, because I was like any good child coming from a middle class family. My parents wanted me to do either engineering or, of course, become a doctor. I was never an intelligent student. So I ended up being an engineer. And not that engineers are not intelligent. I think they're very intelligent people. But and when I found myself in the in the engineering institute, which is one of the top institutes in Delhi, I realized within 3 months it's not for me. And that's when I realized कि ये यहाँ तो कुछ होने नहीं वाला, ये तो 4 साल बिल्कुल गए पानी में. So we had to do something else. Luckily, there were some internships which started opening at that time. It wasn't really a rage, right? Today you have Internshala, it's on the other platforms which are organizing the entire experience. Referrals, this, that. I got a lucky break, started doing internship, then got on another bandwagon of KPOs, and actually started working at 17 years, and kept working. SpeakIn was born as an idea, at ISB while I was studying with a couple of my batchmates. It was my batchmates, my co-founder, Vittal Anaconda's idea. I never believed in it. I never thought it could make money. But I couldn't say no. He was my friend, so I became a part of it. 7 years later, I was again feeling like I never really settled in a corporate environment, barring my first job that I had. I always
Hmm.
felt I was kind of a misfit because I was too restless for a corporate environment. And that restlessness gave way around 2014 when my second daughter was born. I think that's also where, a lot of career shifts for women typically happen.
Sure, sure,
Though people don't say, I think marriage, childbirth, or any changes on the personal side with
sure.
respect to your parents, children, or etc., your ecosystem, they tend to affect your career journeys as well. So mine was also affected. SpeakIn was born, and here I am making money. So
Wonderful. That's the most important part. No, you bring in a very interesting aspect. Nirja Ganesh was here on the podcast last week,
mm,
and we spoke at length about the whole impact of how career changes for women given caregiving responsibilities. Now, it could be for your parents, it could be for your children, it could be husband, spouses, it could be also caregiving responsibility for your in-laws, and
mm,
it often, in many ways, pushes them back
mm.
by several years, and it kind of also confuses. It also puts in a lot of self-doubt, imposter syndrome when they want to come back into workforce. And she shared her story about how what happened and what led to what she does today. Do you have any similar moments of reflection where you went through similar emotions about, is this impacting my career, and how did you overcome some of those moments of self-doubt or imposter syndrome, as they call?
See, for me, it was never an either or, uh, you know, activity. I think a lot of people today are very lucky to have that either financially or otherwise,
Sure.
from just their emotional makeup, or their structural makeup to have that, to take that and or decision. For me, it was never and or. I had seen my mom. My mom was the only working woman in our entire family. She was in a government job, and I had seen her raise me, do everything at home. We never even had a helper.
Sure.
I remember much later in life, I think she got a part-time helper, but she managed everything beautifully. And so for me also, irrespective of the milestones I hit, I never thought of it like, अच्छा अभी शादी हो गया है तो अब काम नहीं करना है or work life balance and all that. It's all a part of you.
Right.
uh, Maybe the format changes, right? The format of how you're doing what you're doing changes. Your timelines change slightly. Maybe you slow down, but you never quit. And at the same time, I think I have personally been really lucky in some sense. I've had massive support of my parents, number one, and second and most critical, my husband. Through my milestones, I did my MBA after my marriage. So he's been extremely supportive, extremely supportive. So I think, so jitna bhi career perspective, so people go in and do their MBAs and do those, 2x2s and whatnot. I think just apply all your learning to finding the best partner that you can. Your life will sort itself to a large extent. So I was lucky, perhaps.
Yeah. Wonderful. I think you said it right, and a lot of people have said this as one of the most important decisions that you need to take is to find the right spouse, and it is so important. I agree with that. Um, Speaking of Speakin's journey as well, you shared a bit about how the journey evolved, when it started, how it shaped up. Do you want to walk us through what were some of the moments of, like how roller coaster was the ride, if I ask you, and what were some of the key learnings that you would want us to, listen to?
Oh, it's an absolute roller coaster. it's excruciating at times. You really want to drop everything either on somebody's head or on the floor and say, "Nahi hoga abhi." Just give it up, and then why am I doing this?
Right.
You keep asking that to yourself. But I think what has, and there've been a lot of moments. You will keep struggling as an entrepreneur. Just that your levels change, right? I mean, you're struggling. आप पहले 1 लाख के लिए struggle करते हो, फिर आप 5 के लिए करते हो, 10 के लिए करते हो, then you move into crores, and then you move into millions
Right.
and billions and whatnot. Just that your level of struggle changes, but the struggle will never be over. Having said that, I think the biggest lesson that I have learned in my entire journey, and I'm realizing it more and more as we are growing. I mean, as I was telling you that we are. I have not spoken about it yet, but we are launching Japan operations next week, and
Sure.
I don't think any of this. I mean, even though I'm sitting here and you've been very kind and humble in your positioning, but it's actually the team's work.
True.
Getting the right people together with you who not just have the will but the skill and are have the trust in you that you'll get somewhere. You have the vision, and we are standing by you. And I think people like, and you met my team, right? Even my husband himself has joined me now. So Surbi you've met, Efaz you've met, Ishita you've met, and then there's a host of other team members as well. I hope I'm not forgetting everybody, anybody, but there's a big team. And credit to each one of them for building what they have built and for putting up with my unique prepositions on a daily basis. I'm very jumpy. I get very restless. I can't sit at one this thing. आपने अभी India market में काम किया. Now you moved to Singapore. From Singapore, you've created the entire. We are today world's largest network of speaker bureaus. We own 30 speaker bureaus world over, and these are 47 different languages we are talking about. Now we're going to Japan. So all of this is the whole weight is lifted by this team, and I think if you are looking to do anything of your own, the very first thing you should focus on is getting the right team who's mentally aligned to you and who's aligned to your vision and who will together roll up the sleeves and get things done.
That's a very interesting perspective that you bring in. In fact, I was chatting with a couple of colleagues yesterday, and I think, given the current climate and the situation with how careers are evolving, how jobs are evolving, how market is evolving as well, the nature of jobs are changing, and people at the end of the day either are picked up by organizations to do something that they have not done in the past, or they are picked up to do um, something, but probably the organization doesn't have the ability to compensate you enough for that matter. Uh, Bringing that perspective to the concept of startups, a lot of startups today are going through the same challenge where they would want to work with a lot of these organizations, I mean, individuals for that matter.
Mm.
Uh, the philosophy of selling the dream to these individuals is often a very hard one. And
Mm.
entrepreneurs, as much as they have their dreams to do, I want to achieve this or we want to achieve this, the concept of I and we evolves over time. What tips do you have, or what advice would you give to starting budding entrepreneurs of how to go about selling your dream to your teams first? Do you have any advice or any reflections of how you did that yourself?
I think there are two ways to look at it. One is to attract a fresh person, right? The hiring process itself. I
Sure.
think hiring, and I don't know if it is right or wrong. I mean, maybe if I'd taken another route here, we could have been bigger. I don't know. But I have always focused on somebody who wants to be in this. I don't believe in selling either to clients or to employees.
Hmm.
I don't know. I personally I feel that you would, as a person, would somewhere whether you're taking the right decision for yourself or not. You should not be
Sure.
convinced into it, either buying a product
Sure.
or a service or
Sure.
buying your way into a job. I don't think you should
Sure.
need convincing. That needs to happen from within you. Otherwise, you will fall off the bandwagon very quickly, which is even more damaging, both for you as well
Hmm.
as for the organization. So
Sure.
my first and the only criteria was I have gone the the Ivy League route as well, and getting people in
The
and
best of talent.
fancy fancy organizations, fancy degrees as well. True, but the first and the foremost requirement for me would be how enthused are you about joining uh, this journey. And there is enough and more out there about speaking, good, bad, ugly. You read that and
Hmm.
you come to me. I mean, people who are interested would have their own perspective. I need a new perspective. My question to people in
Sure.
any interview is, how will speaking change after you come in? And you need to have a perspective. If you don't have a
Sure.
perspective, then because I'm not, I don't micromanage. I can't micromanage.
Hmm. Sure.
So, and therefore, we need people who can shape their own journey. As well as people who are within the system, I think continuous basis, you need to show them number one, you are wholly, completely invested. Second, you need to show them you are more dedicated than anybody else.
Hmm.
I think once they see those two things, then of course the outcomes in terms of growth, whether it's geography, numbers, and more, I think that again, you don't really have to hard sell that. The results often speak for themselves, and I think you create an environment where everybody grows.
Wonderful. Dear audience, we are having this wonderful conversation here. If you have any questions, comments, please feel free to put them in the comment section, whether you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, and I'll pick them up and ask them on your behalf to Deepshikha. Deepshikha, another question that I had in terms
Mm,
of life of an employee is very different than that of an entrepreneur, and you've lived both in your journey of last 2 decades or more.
mm,
For people who are contemplating to take the plunge of being an employee to an entrepreneur or solopreneur or freelancer or a consultant for that matter, and I'm asking this as a result of, as I said again, the job market, which is kind of very unique today than how it used to be 5 years ago or 4 years ago for that matter. So given the situation of jobs, a lot of people are pushed into a situation in their personal lives where they don't have a job in hand, but they would want to continue to earn for their families, and they may pick up freelancing. What would your guidance or advice be to such people as to what could they do differently, and what should they be aware about as they embark on this journey?
Okay, I have been and whether it's Singapore, India, or I'll talk about these two markets because I know them better than the others. But
Sure.
unfortunately, the past 6 months have been very, very unkind on a lot of people. Um, and I'm talking more about the involuntary exits that people have taken. And
Yes.
somehow I've seen a pattern of not should not have happened, but there is a pattern in terms of aging. There is a pattern in terms of clear salary levels, which is a function of cost regulation. And finally, I think it is also, and if you come down, whether there's a the age is fine and the skill is fine and all of that, I think attitude. Because
Hmm.
and I'm talking as an organization, because a lot of organizations have realized that they don't really have either the resources or the patience to feed into the changes that are happening. I mean, as people are confused, organizations are also confused.
True.
You know, 2 years ago, the talent was so expensive, perhaps the most expensive, and you had issues like moonlighting and this and that. And then again, there was a slump. And then again, you don't know, maybe in another 3 months, market will again go crazy. I mean, there'll be plenty
Right.
of jobs out there, etc. So I think there's a bit of a mistrust that has come both sides.
Hmm.
And a lot of rebalancing will be needed at a macro level. But at a micro level, at an individual level, one big part that, again, I say is that is it is your attitude that'll see you through, that'll help you survive or thrive in the system in case it is not involuntary. Dusra cheese, there is a lot of noise in the market. There's just this is crazy thing about, you see in YouTubers, you see Instagrammers, there's something that my kid was showing me, and she makes about $10 million a year, and by our definition कोई qualification नहीं है, कुछ नहीं, मैंने क्या पढ़ाई की है? नहीं, पढ़ाई is not relevant, no? And these are content creators and this and that. The fancy of, or the perception that there's so much money out there, और मैं क्या कर रहा हूँ अपने जीवन में, मैं तो 9 से 5 की नौकरी कर रहा हूँ और मेरा ये निकल रहा है. That is all wrong. Wrong in the sense that it's completely overstated, and but that messes your head, right? Because you are getting exposed to all this noise, and आपको लगता है कि यार, अब मेरे को लगता है कि यार मैं तो सबसे बड़ा, मतलब I am तो loser only, because देखो ये कितना कमा रहे हैं, and media doesn't help, content creators don't help, all of this buzz doesn't help. As a startup entrepreneur, I mean, when we were in the midst of COVID, everybody was raising money, and people were getting millions of dollars. These are professional e-learning, ये वो फलाना. We were also looking at that, and I was also thinking, मुझे पैसा क्यों नहीं मिल रहा? Why am I not getting money? मैं छोड़ देती हूँ ये सब, I'll just drop it off. But no, I mean, we kept doing the best that we knew, and we survived. A lot of people are nowhere to be found now. So net, it's a very touchy topic, and I've seen a lot of pain as well in this topic.
Yes.
Number one, if you're sitting in a good place, please keep sitting. True. It is not a pretty picture on the entrepreneurial side, especially if you've come after a very, very long journey of an employment experience. Not right now, because entrepreneurship doesn't happen in a planned way, unfortunately, as I have noticed from an empirical side with a lot of people. It'll just happen. It'll happen overnight. You don't have to plan for it. That is my sense of, again, it may work differently for other people. So if it has to happen, it'll happen. You will gain that confidence कि मैं खींच लूंगा या खींच लूंगी. Second is, market is getting flooded with consultants right now. So please don't flood the market even more. Selling is not easy. It'll take time. Finally, I would suggest, अगर फिर भी आपको करना है, get a couple of clients first. Get your hands dirty. Offline, maybe moonlight a bit. Test it and then jump off. Because and this I'm talking particularly for people of my age, who have responsibility as well, who need money in the bank on a daily, on a weekly or monthly basis. Sorry. So yeah, long answer, but yeah.
Sure. Wonderful perspective again. Talking of people who are currently in jobs and wanting to become consultants, I agree with you completely in terms of how crowded the consultant market is becoming. And selling often becomes a huge challenge where people are just not able to, I would say it's more a factor of, I have my 20, 30, 40 years of experience, and that should speak for itself. But we need to find the value proposition fit the right requirements of the role. And that's a struggle. So you're completely right on that part. One other interesting topic that is emerging, and I'm going to surely and soon have a guest on the podcast speak more about it, but I would definitely love your thoughts on a term called portfolio careers that I've heard recently, where it probably emerged from a term which is investment related. But what it speaks about is bringing in multiple avenues of income to be able to take care of yourselves, even in an adverse situation like this. It's a very thin line of difference between portfolio careers and even moonlighting for that matter. What I've heard is that it is very prevalent in the West. We all know that because everyone has multiple jobs to do. Asia is picking up in many ways on those trends as well. What are your views on that in terms of, do you subscribe to this philosophy of portfolio careers, especially given the current market? And any tips that you would have to share for transitioning into doing something like this?
We're having a candid conversation, so I'll give you a candid comment there. I don't believe in this. I think it is completely and utterly damaging exercise for both
Mhm.
the person who's doing it and the one who probably will be in the receiving end, unless you are only in it for sales कि मैं आता हूँ आपके, I'll open your doors, or you're on a project basis.
Hmm.
There is, like, again, I have seen so much of these, fractional CMOs, fractional this, fractional क्या होता है? The if the world has changed, but the basics have not changed, there is merit in focusing, in
Hmm.
building something. There is a different amount of satisfaction, gratification in building something of your own hands that you don't get when you have your hands in different pies. As
Hmm.
human beings, our anatomy is structured in a way that we are only meant for one thing. We're not really meant for multitasking. That is attention disorder. So
Hmm.
if
Hmm.
you have spent X number of years on something, why don't you find that one area which is a combination of your will and skill, and invest and go deeper and deeper in that? There will be merit, there will be takers. Maybe it'll develop a niche for you. It'll give you a very different level of satisfaction as a person and money. Itni badi dunya hai. India itself is 1.7 billion people. I mean, you will find takers for any kind of skill, any kind of skill. But just
True.
be good at that. That is my perception of it. Also, I believe that there is so number one, again, I'm sorry, but I don't believe in that concept of multi focal kind
Multitasking.
of a career. I think you're doing a massive disservice, and I've seen so many failures on this regard because nobody benefits. You start for 3 months, मैं retainer पे कर लूंगा, मैं I'll take an X this thing, आपको ये success fee मिले, कुछ नहीं होता है. And after 3 months, either you end up burning your bridges or you end up with something in your heart somewhere, and both of you walk away and you're like, kuch nahi. I might as well
Hmm.
take something for 3 months and then just do that, because people are looking for builders. The world
Hmm.
is going to change from, irrespective of job roles जो change हो रहे हैं, AI आ रहा है, ये आ रहा है, वो आ रहा है, कुछ भी आ सकता है. People who will be the job market will split into two: consumers and creators. You need to see where you want to sit.
Wow, that's a very interesting perspective and very different than what I had been hearing over the last few weeks. And I think it's also a perspective that emerges from the fact that, yes, I had a job, I don't have a job, but I have experience. Can I do something with that? And if yes, how? And that's where I think these fractional roles are coming up. Again, going back to the old comment that I made, earlier comment that I made about organizations being wanting to work with good quality of people, but they probably are not able to afford that talent, and they kind of look at a way where they can engage with them on a fractional basis, and that's the perspective that I had. But I kind of agree with you in terms of how it kind of puts, I mean, it's a disservice in many ways to both us and the individuals who are doing that. And how do we balance that is going to be a lot more deeper conversation and analysis that one needs to do over a period of time of how
I
to
think
measure success in that.
if I can just make one small comment there, Gopal, I think
Sure,
that
sure.
I work extensively. I mean, over the past 7 years of running speaking, we've constantly worked with, you come from you set up the entire gig
Yes,
practice for EY,
yes,
and you did some wonderful
yes.
work there. Uh, so nothing wrong with gigs, nothing wrong with doing
Hmm.
that. All I'm saying is, आप जो भी कर रहे हो उस समय, just focus
Hmm.
on that. So we work with speakers across the board, right? I mean, on the speaker bureau
Correct,
side, we work
correct.
with coaches in now 8 countries, and from China to India to Hong Kong. Are they 100% with us? No, they're not. I mean, but when they're
Yeah.
doing it, they're doing just that, and they've dedicated themselves to a cause, to a topic. The third thing that I also want to point out here is a lot of people who are moving out into the market. What they're missing is if there is noise for you, there is noise for your consumers as well, your clients as well. So you need to
Hmm.
brand yourself. How will you brand yourself if you will be all over the place? You need to find your niche. You need to find something that says, अगर वो वर्ड के बारे में कोई भी सोचता है, फॉर एग्जांपल, इफ आई थिंक ऑफ से organizational development coaching or leadership coaching, one of the topmost names that comes to me is Gopal. Because you've created that brand, you've given that to people. You put yourself out there and guided people and mentored. You teach in institutions and beyond. Build that for yourself. अपना अपना
Sure.
एक ब्रांड, अपना एक इकोसिस्टम, अपना एक नीश डेवलप करें, एंड देन यू गो टू द मार्केट, यू विल गेट मोर प्रीमियम, मोर सेटिस्फैक्शन एंड मोर अपॉर्चुनिटीज.
Absolutely. Very well said. And I'm hearing a comment about power outage. No, it's not. I'm very much live and I can see myself online on LinkedIn. I wonder why people are unable to see us. Now, talking of power outage, that's the power outage that I just experienced. Seems to be some kind of manifestation on every episode now, at least in the last two, where people comment of power outage, and the power outage actually happens. But luckily, I have a backup which allows me to remain connected and not lose the live session as well. So, moving on to the next question that I had, which is now speaking today has impacted professional learning landscape in Asia. Um, any journeys that you want to share of any organizations, without taking names of course, but where things have really transformed from what it used to be to what it is today, on account of the speaking efforts that it took.
I think I would definitely. We've had several massive case studies, particularly now on the coaching side. And we're working now with the largest bank in Singapore. And this is a truly multicultural bank with
Sure.
its roots in China. And from there, I think bringing what we brought with our Find a Coach platform in terms of the ability to provide coaching not just to the CXO level, but also bring it down. So with us, we're democratizing coaching. Organizations are moving from the traditional large mass, ये product है और आप सब सीखेंगे इससे. People are moving away from that. They're
Sure.
wanting to bring in a lot more customization. They're wanting to solve people specific challenges and then build that further for their people they want to focus on. And again, goes back to the career shifts, right? I mean, organizations have also become smart. They
Yeah.
know they're pegging, and they're even beyond your general performance appraisals, they're tagging people who they want to retain in the system and who they want to see a longer journey with. And these are the people where the investments are going when it comes to coaching. And we are the only platform, we are the only company, service provider that this bank has taken to provide coaching in 5 different companies of their subsidiary in 5 different countries across Asia Pacific. So currently we're providing coaching for them in Chinese, in Japanese, in the Filipino language, Bahasa, and Malay. And the transition that they have seen in their managerial capability in a short 3 month of the launch itself is massive. Also, I think to a certain extent, the culture in Asia in particular is such that people don't talk. Employees don't talk, and,
Sure.
and and even in India, it's true, right? I mean, on a normal day, no employee will come back to you or come back to the boss and say, "कि आप तो गलत कर रहे हैं." तो एशिया में तो और ज्यादा नहीं बोलते. The hierarchy is very strong. So
True.
interventions like these help in shaping up and bringing out issues or the latent areas which employees are facing. That to us has helped, whether it is in terms of retention, whether it's in terms of satisfaction, also in terms of being more productive with the teams at large. And it is
Sure.
by far the biggest case study that we've had. Sorry.
Wonderful. Um, yeah, you may want to grab a cup of water. Um, you touched upon a very interesting and an important topic, which is coaching. A lot of organizations are doing a lot of coaching based interventions, and the concept of coaching is now gaining momentum. And we've all seen that across the West for sure. And now, also, as you are pointing out, it is gaining momentum even Asia and even in India for that matter.
Right.
Um, what do you see as one of the major changes when it comes to coaching? Uh, I mean, one as an intervention, and of course, I mean, what has changed in the last few years in terms of coaching in itself? Is it because I've also seen a lot of people say, "Oh, but it's mentoring. Oh, but it's counseling probably." But coaching is not that. And how do we kind of go about that? So, any views on how organizations are taking coaching these days?
Absolutely. Very interesting point that you made. Like I said, that the coaching part has become a little more democratized. So number one is, uh, let me just talk about why coaching was there, but not there. Say
Hmm.
about 3 years ago, and this
Yeah,
phenomenon has started only in the past 2 to 3 years. Number one reason was that the focus on credentials in terms of certifications was far more. The focus on academics was far more than the actual delivery of the changes happening in the market. Number two, the focus was only on the CXO level, which has dramatically changed, I think, in the past 3 years or so. So, coaching has come down from this leadership even to the middle management level, because
sure.
organizations know now they need, and also with work from home and lesser engagement generally, they found this beautiful tool to engage more and more people, as well as to keep people together and listen to them on an ongoing basis. Thirdly, I think the bigger challenge that we have seen, or the biggest differentiation that I've seen, is the focus on practitioners than purely certification driven coaches. In fact, there are organizations who've come to us and categorically said, certified nahi chahiye. You know,
Interesting.
we want people who have an X number of experience, which is
Yeah,
higher than the person that they're coaching, right? Because there's a massive credibility issue there. uh, Having credentials or having a certification doesn't do any justification. And the last and the biggest change that I have seen is that there's just been too many coaches out there now. And also partially going back to the fractional aspect, people wanting to become consultants and so on. Everybody is going out and getting a certification for themselves.
yeah.
There, therefore, the noise has really gone up, and a platform like us brings that a surety curation and cut through the noise to give you the best that you want for your people. I think that is the difference.
Wonderful. I completely agree with you on the aspect that you mentioned about the relevance of experience. Though philosophically speaking, a coach is a coach and can bring in interventions as much as he wants, and the responsibility is that with the coachee.
Hmm.
Having an experience always brings in a very different perspective, and sometimes being able to ask the right questions requires you to have some bit of experience and exposure yourself as well. And I think you're right when organizations are asking you for that, which is good to see and good to hear. Um, you've been recognized as I mean, for your leadership and mentorship. A question is, who was your mentor, and how has mentorship helped you in your career?
I think I have been very fortunate, and I think that is what and frankly, whatever I've created at SpeakIn or together with the team, uh, it's all been my own experiences. I mean, the people who have helped me move up. I mean, like I said earlier, also I come from a middle class family. I was an only child of my parents. Both my parents were government servants. I didn't even know what an IIT was before I started applying to an engineering college.
Sure.
I didn't know about IIMs till I actually started my applications for ISB. I remember when I wrote my first letter of recommendation for ISB, my then boss, Mohit Srivastava, I don't know, I'm sure he's not listening, but Mohit Srivastava was the guy. He tore that entire application and threw it on my face. I was about, I was what? I was about 21, 22 or something like that. And like, "ये क्या लिखा है? ले जाओ इसको." And then there were so many corrections on that paper. I went back. I of course I was a bit shocked, but I was not. I didn't take it personally. I ठीक है, इसको ज़्यादा पता होगा ये IIT गया था, IIM गया है, boss है, तो ज़्यादा ही पता होगा मतलब कुछ. I
Right.
corrected that, brought it back. People like that, in their most candid forms, have mentored me, have coached me to a person that I became. Had that person not given me feedback in whichever shape and form he gave, I would have never made to ISB. ISB changed my life. It gave me an exposure of a very different kind. So I, and that is what I've tried to replicate here. None of the people that I met throughout my journey, whether it was people like Richard Reiki, people like Manoj Kohli, who was managing director of SoftBank in India, people like KV Rao here in Singapore, Timothy Lowe here again in Singapore. I mean, these are people who've changed my life and by just giving me an exposure to their experiences. That should not become, like I said, राजे का बेटा राजा क्यों होता है? Because उसको दरबार का exposure होता है.
True.
Can you bring that exposure to a common man or a woman? If you can, that would change lives of people, and that is what we are setting out to do.
Wonderful. What trends do you see shaping the future of professional learning and development, and how is speaking preparing to adapt to these changes?
I think we are, of course, world is changing very fast, but we've taken very two fundamental views towards
Sure.
professional learning. One is the larger group learning. Two is learning from people who've been there, done that. So there's nothing academic about it, and therefore we will always stay trending. We will never
Hmm.
outdate ourselves because we're bringing in people who are currently acting on them, executing these things, whether it is using generative AI or building sustainability or ESG policies for your organization. These are people who are doing it right now. They're not people who did it at some point of time and now converted to a books. By the time वो book publish होती है वो पूरा का पूरा outdate हो जाता है. तो
True.
and therefore I think it's a beautiful product market fit for where SpeakIn stands today. And we are only as good as our experts. I think that is where we would want to do much more. That is an area that I want to invest a lot more as an institution. I think we want to invest in our coaches and give them the support that they need to bring the best of their experiences to our clients.
How is generative AI changing the landscape? There is a view that we have often heard that Gen AI is going to take away jobs. Gen AI is going to evolve how things are. I mean, there are two extremes when people speak about that. But I feel that it's just going to enable us to do things a lot better, um, and it's going to continue to challenge mediocrity in many ways. But what are your views on that? And also how is that shaping up the entire experience for you and your clients using Gen AI, or for that matter, any AI tools?
There is a lot of interest in how the entire uh, AI genre would change the world. Uh, is it new? I don't think so. There was always a desire to automate. Automation has been there. I mean, you've done this
Correct.
anyway, right? I mean, people
Correct.
have been trying to automate, and it went through the roof. The desire went through the roof during COVID because the reliance on people proved rather unreliable, and for whatever reasons. And
Hmm.
so, will it completely eliminate jobs of any kind and form? I don't think so.
Hmm.
Because we're humans, we need customization at the last mile. Will it reduce? Absolutely, yes. And I think the biggest sectors that will be impacted would be retail, would be the last mile automated jobs, customer service, processing, anything that can be automated, organizations will automate. And that is why I'm saying that, even for people who want to be in the job, the only friend that you have right now is the ability to unlearn and learn. Me, for example, I was sitting in a digital marketing review or a content review. I'm sure you, like you were mentioning, right? We've changed some content amplification for speaking. We are now bringing more expert content.
Yeah.
And when we brought that team together, we were sitting together, and most of what they were saying was just not making sense to me. It was completely alien. And I can stand up and say, "Arey, mere ko to 20 saal ka experience hai, ab kya bol rahe ho?" But the thing is that the landscape is completely different today. So I need to have that uh, flexibility to say कि 20 साल जो कुछ किया है doesn't matter. It just gives me a fantastic foundation. But let me start again. I think that is what's going to help you survive. There could be a new skills coming up every moment, every hour, every day. Choose, move on, learn, unlearn.
I had heard this very interesting term called reverse mentoring. And one of my former bosses implemented this and found immense value in the whole conversation and the way he started looking at the world. Uh, of course, there are a lot of perspectives on when is the right time to have reverse mentors, wherein you get mentored by people who are younger to you and bring in very different perspectives. Any thoughts on that? I mean, do kind of have a team which kind of feeds into a lot of these changes that you're implementing at work?
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm the only one which is queuing the average age at SpeakIn. Apart from that, everybody's pretty young. So and it's very interesting. It is very fulfilling to learn these new things and be open about it. I don't think that but I do feel that some people still come with their attitude. "Yeah, मेरे को sir नहीं बोला." So
Hmm.
so, you'll have to, in a figurative sense, you'll have to let that go. And world has changed a lot today. And the good thing is that even when you're in job or you're in your setup, I think the younger folks, they really appreciate if you step back and hear them out. Uh, Second is because there's actually not many people listening to that. So second is giving opportunities, giving them a free hand to make their own mistakes. A lot of lessons are not applicable anymore.
Mm.
But many are, but many aren't. The way we were raised is very different. I can't tell my kids, हमारे माँ बाप ने तो ये किया था, आप तो ये कर रहे हैं. They'll be like, yeah, okay, whatever. I mean, very different
Yeah.
circumstances. So
Yeah.
reverse mentoring is absolute yes. Be open. I think once you don't have to, call them bro, but you can just be easy about it. Be receptive. Ask questions like you would ask a peer, and I think it's a beautiful relationship which can give a lot to both parties.
Wonderfully said. Dear audience, I don't think I'm getting all the questions and comments on the platform StreamYard, which typically tends to act up at times, but I'm seeing a few that is there on the LinkedIn app. So Vinay Pushpakaran says, fully agree, when you have to sell to a prospective employee, it doesn't augur well in the long run. I think it was a comment that you made about not needing to have to sell the jobs to them. Prem Prakash says, good conversation, differ though partially on multitasking. I think our conversation was slightly more broader and different than multitasking. I think multitasking is absolutely. Any thoughts on that? I mean, you have any perspective to add on, like
I
multitasking?
think it's absolutely fine. I think what works. It's also different stages of where you are. It's also a different context. If it works for you, by all means, please do it. If that's what excites you, uh, there are a lot of jacks of all trades, and it is absolutely fine if that works, because a lot of things don't really need that much depth, right?
Hmm.
So it's fine to do some things. If I'm asked to clean my kitchen, I'll just do it pretty superficially and just move on. I don't need to go in depth and become a deep cleaner. Uh,
Right.
so like somebody says, whatever floats your boat. There's no right
Yeah,
or wrong.
sure. And I think it's an interesting take on the same thing where some people like shifts. That gives them a high. That's their identity. What will you say about them?
I don't know. Again, no comments. My
Sure.
sense is that my experience on this is that when I have spread myself too thin, it has really created a havoc for me. And I have not done a
Sure.
good job at anything. Uh, when I figured things out, I've been a lot more sorted internally. And but at the same time, you also need to know when to let it go. You know, बहुत बार होता है when we take up something and we invest so much into it, it's not going anywhere. It's a
Sure.
job or it's a company or whatever. It's a relationship. It's not moving. It's not, आप कुछ भी कर लोगे वो कुछ नहीं होने वाला उसका.
Hmm.
Then you need to have that, foresight, or you need to have at least that ability to infer what is happening and then say, अब कुछ और करते हैं.
Sure. I think that's a wonderful perspective as well. Neil Kamal Gupta says, agreed, alone AI cannot do it. It requires human interaction, absolutely, which is why I think we are still here. It was created by us. So we need, I mean, they need us to prompt them, probably. I mean, not they, probably the system. Learning should be extended to length and width rather than depth. How should we become more competitive? That's his question.
I don't really understand the question very clearly, but I'm assuming you're talking about the length and width of the organization, or just go deeper into
The skill.
verticalization of or departments or a person, etc. I think learning is, and I think this is now a very well established bit. Learning is not one size fits all. You
Yeah.
can't have the whole mass auditorium training sessions where people
Yeah.
will be like, ये मैं तो करता ही नहीं हूँ ये काम, मेरे किसी काम का ही नहीं है, and all of that. So very highly customized, credible training, functional, actionable, something that I can start using immediately. That is the kind of training that organizations should be investing on. And also at the same time, I think training is also a big tool now to show that you care for your employees rather than just tick in the box. I think it's becoming a huge retention measure. Coaching is becoming a huge
Yes.
retention measure for organizations, and I think that is something that will give you a massive competitive edge if deployed correctly.
Wow, wonderful. I think I completely agree with you on the coaching part because I've seen that as an interesting trend that is picking up and probably also a lot of conversations around that. So, with you, Sudipto Saha says, I tend to agree with Deepshikha where sh- she views fractional CXOs being only transactional. Very little strategic development and mentoring, organization building happens. So, yeah, I mean, that's what we spoke about in terms of
I'll
how.
just I'll just make one
Yeah,
small comment, Gopal. I think this is
yeah,
something, this is
please.
a topic which I've heard uh, extensively on your episodes as well. I think if
Hmm.
you are, you know, if you're moving into a consulting position, or if you are at a position in your career where you believe that it's time for me to kind of leverage on what I've learned, I would recommend, and especially when it comes to, you were talking about startups, or startups के पास पैसे नहीं होते हैं या फिर उसको इतना depth नहीं होता है. I would recommend you rather take a dedicated window with them. The dedicated window could be as small as 1 month, but don't
Hmm.
do a, a bits and pieces and a divided attention
Like, don't
activity.
do, yeah, correct. Don't do 10 startups
And
for
the
1 hour in a
beautiful
day.
thing with startups, no, Gopal, is के बड़ी कंपनी का एक अलग trajectory. You can go slow there. Startups
Hmm.
में whatever you would do, you would see changes so quickly. Anything, even an iota of your contribution, would change that organization very, very quickly. And that will give you a different kind of a high. And somebody talked about high, right? it's a very different kind of a high, and it's a high for you, it's a high for an organization. And
Very true.
if we're assuming everybody is reasonable here, you may find your own journey with that company. So you may find something that this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do long term.
Absolutely.
But bits and pieces में मत कीजिए, आप अपना समय वेस्ट करेंगे और दूसरे को वो फील नहीं होता है कि उसको भी कुछ मिला है.
Right.
And please be
Right.
ready to roll up your sleeves.
Yeah, that's a big thing, right? I mean, a lot of people, when they transition from large, good corporate roles to doing something different for themselves through startups, it becomes unlearning journey becomes a longer one where the challenges they're not used to it, and I think that leads to longer settling period uh, as well. So, with you, absolutely, wonderful perspectives. A last question, and then we will get into quick rapid fire. But before that, you today wear many hats: entrepreneur, author, speaker, mentor. How do you manage and balance these different roles effectively?
I have given a structure to my life now. Uh, Very late, but forced kind of a structure because I have too many pieces moving.
Yes.
Whether it is family, whether it is my organization, whether it is myself, whether it is everything else, then the entire ecosystem around you. I want to do a reasonable job at all of them. One thing I want to be best at is my uh, to give my best to is my family. That is number one for me. Uh, my organization that I have uh, together with my team brought this far. That is where I want to be the best, nothing but the best. I want Speaking to be the only platform globally, both on the speaker side as well as on the coaching side. And we will get there. We're working very hard to get there. Uh, in terms of self, I do want to put some effort on my health, and I've not done that. I really want to do that. I think uh, people keep saying 40 is the new 20 and this and that. वो कुछ नहीं है ऐसा. 40 पे आपके knees बोलना शुरू हो जाते हैं, आपको पास का दिखता नहीं है. Or your body is changing the way your body is supposed to change, the way human beings
Yeah.
are. Homo sapiens are meant to evolve. We are evolving at that speed. So I think I should do that. I've started realizing the need for it, but I've not acted on it. But I want to act on it. And then there is the entire, the entire universe of the ecosystem that I work and I operate in, whether my network, my extended acquaintances, friends, and more, which is where I want to give back. I want to be a lot more. Uh, it takes a lot of my time. People reach out with a lot of CVs or conversations and this and that. I try to be as candid as I can. I think I should be slightly less candid, but I can't help it because I think if it helps somebody, I mean that is what would give me a lot more gratification than somebody leaving by saying कि अच्छा बंदा है, she's a nice person. उससे अच्छा है अगर जैसे वो मेरे को फाड़ के उसने एप्लीकेशन दिया था ना, that made sure I went to ISB, and I still remember that guy. I still go back to
Wow.
him at times. I would rather be a Mohit Srivastava for people than be the nice guy that I spoke to once.
I can relate to that really well because I know of a person who reached out to you through me. And the
Sorry.
comment and feedback that he shared was the perspectives that I got from after speaking to Deepshikha is something that I had never heard from anybody. And it was so refreshing and different that now I'm having to redraw the entire plan. So thank you for doing that. And you know who I'm talking about. If not, we will talk about that separately. But it is true. I think you bring that very different perspectives to some of these conversations. So thank you for doing that. And thank you for being who you are. Quickly, getting into the rapid fire, and there's going to be a few questions. Uh, some of them could be one word answers, some of them could be slightly longish, but the idea is to keep it very short.
Yeah.
Favorite book?
Never Eat Alone by Keith Ferrazzi. That changed my life.
Okay, wonderful. Who inspires you the most?
I don't know. Too many people.
Okay, any one name that comes to your mind?
My mom.
Okay. Uh, Morning routine. What's the first thing you do when you wake up?
Oh God, I usually would pray just for fractions of seconds. I have a small temple, and I try to kind of go and just say thank you for everything, and that's mostly what I do most of the days when I get up.
Wow. Um, I'm tempted to share a story here.
Sure.
It was about 11 years ago, and I was attending a large leadership seminar, and we had invited a very seasoned cardiologist, very seasoned. I mean, he had done about more than 1,000 surgical interventions. And we asked him this question as to how do you start your day? And he said, very similar to what you said, but he gave a slightly more broader meaning to it. He said, I open my eyes and I say three things: Matra Devo Bhava, Pitra Deva Bhava, Acharya Deva Bhava, Atiti Deva Bhava, which means I'm saluting my mom, my dad, my guru, and my patients and guests who come in. I thank the God that I am alive so that I'm able to bring in change in others' lives. So that was so profound that I've lived with that for several years now, with that thought of, thank you for, bringing me, allowing me to wake up today morning. So thank you for that. Um, what
Beautiful.
is your favorite unwinding technique?
Shopping. But just taking a stroll down Orchard, or Orchard Street, or somewhere.
Fantastic. What is that one final goal, or one goal rather, not final, one goal that you're working towards?
Building SpeakIn as the platform for thought leaders and experts world over. If anybody is worth its might on any topic of thought leadership, the person should be on SpeakIn.
Wonderful. That is pretty much that I had. So, Deepshika, before we wrap up, do you have any parting thoughts, comments for the audience that is still there listening to us?
Anything that we listen, anything that I've heard a lot, I've had countless mentors, and I take mentorship from every side. I take guidance, learning from every place that I can get. I can take it from my helper. I take it from my child. I take it from the CEO of the largest bank in the country. But I take all of that in the context of what my will and skill is. So always, whatever you're hearing, listening, being guided on, coached upon, mentored upon, take that in the context of your life, whether it works for me or not. And then be confident that आप जो decide करेंगे ठीक ही करेंगे.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Deepshika. Really appreciate you taking the time and speaking to us and the audience. We hope Deepshika's insights and stories have inspired you to rethink your career journey, appreciating the art of effective communication and the impact of powerful storytelling as well. Every career shift is a chance to redefine your narrative, filled with new opportunities and potential that allows you to inspire others. Remember, as Deepshika said, your career path is uniquely yours. The courage to speak up, the clarity in your message, and the unwavering support from our community that leads us to true success. Stay inspired, keep refining your voice, and join us on our next episode as we continue to share stories of remarkable career transformations. Until then, keep speaking and shifting forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks, uh, Gopal. Lovely conversation.
Pleasure. Okay.